Nikki, there's an awful review of your show in the paper. I don't want you to hear it at all. Listen.
Something's moving, something's there, something's blooming in the air.
Thelma the Unicorn. It's nice to listen to stories about the rise of someone's fame from time to time. It can even give us a little hope that maybe our own dreams can come true and we'll be remembered for how we pursued our passions. Well, if you're in the mood for another one of those, then you're in luck because Netflix got you covered with their latest star, Thelma. But I must say that what caught my attention with this is not the singing pony turned unicorn, it's the familiar names who brought Thelma's musical tale to life, such as the writing duo Joshua and Jared Hess, whom the latter is also the director. If the pair's name doesn't ring a bell, then I'm sure some of their first features will, as they started out big with their quirky comedies like Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. Not to mention that they're no strangers to animation either, as they were recently nominated at the Academy Awards for Best Animated Short with 95 Senses, which I honestly very much enjoyed and thought that it should have won the Oscar instead of that war cartoon that likes to blast John Lennon music at you.
So this is Christmas.
And not only that, but this is also an adaptation from a book by Aaron Blabey, the same author who originated The Bad Guys. And based on how well DreamWorks brought his book to life with their fun-filled movie, I can see the great potential that Thelma has with this feature. So now that the pony has her horn ready, does she deserve to become Netflix's next big star? Or is this whole feature a sham as much as her unicorn identity? Let's find out. The story. As Thelma dreamt of making it big as a singer, her story begins when she suddenly got her wish as people started to mistake her for a unicorn. However, as she rises to the top to become the next pop sensation, Thelma faces a new struggle between maintaining a lie so that she could be the singer she always wanted to be, and being with her lifelong friends who love her for who she is. As I was watching this movie where Thelma tries to maintain her fake identity, there was one question that made me look at this in a different way. Haven't I already seen this movie before? An animated movie made by Netflix starring a talking animal who has to live a lie in order to keep their newfound fame. There's something about Thelma the Unicorn that sounds like it's copying the same premise as Leo, which was released half a year prior.
Seeing you guys getting along and doing great in class, it felt like I was actually making a difference.
This could be just bad scheduling on Netflix's part to release two animated movies that are similar not far from one another. But it was hard not to look at Thelma's situation and see the parallels to Leo's lie that he had to maintain to the school kids. But this won't be all about making comparisons between the two. I am aware that this liar story is not the first nor the last that will be told in an animated movie. And yes, even narratively, there are also differences between the two outside of one being a singing pony pretending to be a unicorn, and the other being a wise lizard wanting to make each student feel special. For Thelma, the main focus is to deliver the message about how it's better to be yourself than it is to lie your way into achieving your dreams.
But you can get yourself to Sparkapalooza by singing the truth, singing from your heart.
It is a message that the movie wants the audience to understand very clearly, so much so that it's one of the movie's biggest problems. This is one of those features that prioritizes on teaching the viewer the moral to the point that it's unaware of how hard it's doing it. It's like almost every scene needs a reminder that Thelma is better off being herself instead of being a unicorn. In fact, some characters' purpose is to keep telling her that in their own way.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for. I'm finally special.
You were special before all this, Thelma. You don't need this unicorn stuff.
Yes, this is an important lesson to teach kids, but the more the movie tries to hammer it in, the more it becomes annoying and the more it feels like it's talking down to its audience. And what makes it worse is that it doesn't offer much else to counterbalance that. Going back to Leo, I agree that it doesn't have the best story on the streaming platform. But the reason why I think that Liar story works better is because it knows how to combine its message and the comedy of Adam Sandler and Bill Burr in order to make the film both funny and endearing. Thelma, on the other hand, relies too much on its message to be the film's driving force, and with how reckless the film can be with it, it results in the storytelling to feel like a mess and expose the other problems that are within. As this is the Liar story, it follows the same patterns that you'd find in most other films with that same template. It doesn't just tell the same moral, but also the same highs and lows of what's good and bad about Thelma's unicorn identity. It could try to offer its own brand of humor and quirky characters, but they are not effective enough to either make this engaging or set itself apart from the other Liar stories. Not to mention that there's not enough to lighten up the times when it can make the movie feel mean-spirited for the sake of the moral.
Off the stage, please.
But we didn't even get a chance to perform our song.
I'm sorry, kid. There's no future here, okay? Keep it moving.
But there is one thing I'd like to talk about that could spark a debate, and that is if this counts as a musical. Some could say that it obviously is, especially when its protagonist is a singer and there are moments where songs happen. But I'd argue that if we are talking about a musical in the traditional sense, then no, this one does not count. There are only a few original songs that are fully showcased here, and the majority of them are only Thelma singing them. That, and they don't do much to contribute to the story, so that's why I'm not including a segment in this review where I go, the songs, because the songs are not much of a deal here. That, and I already forgot about them, so that says a lot about how weak and artificial they can be.
The algorithm will give us the groove.
What are you talking about?
The only exception to this where the movie does have a legitimate musical number is the 3 C's to success, where Vic Diamond explains to Thelma his strategy to become famous.
You're gonna light up the galaxy! And all it takes is the 3 C's to success.
And this is why, while I don't think this movie is a musical, I feel like it should have been. That number was honestly the best scene of the film, especially to play around with both the animation and the personality of Vic. If there were more scenes like that where other characters get to have their own musical moments, it would have helped the movie to offer something more than its heavy-handed message and find its own identity. And yet, the opportunity is dropped, and all we're left with is the film repeating the same moral as if it's afraid it might forget what it wants to say. Even if Thelma was a real unicorn, her story of being famous has no talent. The animation. Okay, so maybe the writing is a complete bust, but can there be a way for the pony to put on a show with a visual spectacle? Well, on one hand, the animation is the best aspect of the movie. Then again, I wouldn't say it's great. Nowhere near bad, of course, but hard to say if I ever felt impressed by it. I'll give credit to the animators that the work that they've done in this is pretty good. There is a lot that they have to do with the character animation to work on the choreography and play with the personalities to physically express themselves. There is a good balance of taking advantage of the medium with how big they can go with their expressions, but also not go too over the top to have the movements feel overbearing. It's like it has the right amount of cartooniness to justify the need of having this be an animated movie. Also, I like that it does get creative the more luxurious Thelma's lifestyle becomes. It's actually cool to see the transition where it goes from being mundane and grounded in reality where she's at the farm with her friends, then the world around her gradually becomes more abstract and a bit surrealistic to contrast ordinary life and show how fame is packaged with some weirdness that can either look awesome or off-putting when compared to the normal.
Welcome to Huge Sellout Records, where everything we make sells out immediately.
There is a lot of good that can be found in the animation, but like the life of a popular unicorn, there are parts of it that just don't look right. I'd even say that they don't feel right either because I question the purpose of some of the creative choices. As nice as some of the character animation is, the designs are generally hit and miss. There are those that work well in an animated setting and give the characters their own charm, like Thelma, her Rusty Bucket friends, and most of the other animals. But then there are many of the human characters and a few creatures who look like they're trying too hard to look stylized, and some can look more like strange creatures than the animals beside them. Which brings up another element that feels like a missed opportunity. This is a world where talking animals, sometimes anthropomorphized, live side by side with humans. However, with the exception of Nikki Narwhal, the movie doesn't do much to play around with that component, and it mostly feels like a coincidence that some of the characters are animals. I'm not saying that their personality should reflect upon their species, but as creative as the team got with some characters, they don't take advantage of the animal's anatomy the same way that films like The Bad Guys did.
Come on, Reggie, let's go.
Just give me a minute. Jeez. These guys.
But if there is one thing that bothers me a little about the animation, it's the way that they're being used in the film. Yes, I did enjoy most of the animation, and I appreciate the work that was put into it. But at the same time, a lot of it feels like it's made for filler. It's almost as if the movie is self-aware of its own problems and doubts itself if it's doing enough to keep the viewer's attention. So, in an attempt to compensate, they exaggerate the visuals and include scenes where characters move around a lot in the hopes that audiences would forget of the writing problems and mistake the push to be more bold with this aesthetic as a stylistic choice by saying, "It's a style!"
These dudes sure like to dance.
These are the pool boys. They say if they stop dancing, they die.
Then again, I've seen other movies that tried to pull that and had much worse results. In Thelma's case, there is a part of it where it tells us that it knows of its own poor writing, but doesn't do it too much to the point of hindering its own quality. It's not the best animation that you'll find on Netflix, but it does give Thelma a nice presentation. The characters. As Thelma wants to show the world how well she can sing, the characters around her all have one purpose for the pony: to make her realize that lying about her identity is wrong. And since the message felt like it gave me a headache more so than feeling good about myself, the cast only add to the issue by offering their own flavor of forcefully delivering this moral. That, and I'm honestly not a fan of the voice acting in this. The writing did no favors to offer some layers to expand the characters, and while there are a few that tried to do what they can with the materials they were given, the voices are mostly exaggerated accents that feel like a substitute to an actual personality, ranging from caricatures of their respective jobs to an unusual amount of sassy black women.
You know I'm singing.
You gotta be joking. Ain't nobody on earth wanna hear music from a plain old farm pony.
From the characters featured here, of course, there is Thelma, an aspiring singer who found her ticket to stardom by pretending to be a unicorn and serves as the protagonist who learns about the lesson of why it's more important to be her pony self instead of something that she is not, especially when she still cares a lot about her friends throughout the film.
No one even paid attention to us until I turned into this unicorn. The Rusty Buckets finally have a lead singer that looks like a star.
And among her friends who formed the group the Rusty Buckets, the first is Otis, Thelma's best friend who keeps repeating her the message that she should be herself instead of a unicorn. His shtick does get repetitive quick, but one thing that I'm surprised about is his performance by Will Forte. He did a nice job acting in this, but I'm just shocked how this movie has so many wacky voices, yet Will Forte plays it straight.
If you've been wanting this your whole life, then why are you screwing it up by pretending to be someone else?
The other Rusty Bucket is Reggie, the dumber member who plays more like the group's comic relief. And the fact that he's played by John Heder honestly concerns me. It's one thing for him to do the same performance as he did with Chicken Joe in Surf's Up, but I thought we agreed that he should never voice another talking hoofed animal. Yes, he's a llama here, but I'd rather not have reminders of... Why does this film keep haunting me? Another ally she meets is Peggy Purvis, a kid-friendly version of Blind Al from Deadpool who is like Thelma's music mentor, and the first outside of her friends who recognizes her singing talents instead of her fake appearance.
I don't care what she is. This girl, she could sing the phone book and make you cry.
As for the more villainous characters, there's Vic Diamond, Thelma's new manager who wants to exploit her unicorn image and sacrifice any morality for the sake of getting fame and fortune.
Truth is the death of success. The most important thing in the music biz is how you look.
Danny Stallion, who may not be a villain, but is another star who lies about his identity by being an influencer all about CUD and becomes Thelma's man to upgrade both their popularity.
This whole thing is just an act. I'm actually studying to become a brain surgeon.
You are?
Gotta pay for med school somehow, right? Now, let's give the people what they want.
And Nikki Narwhal, the diva who was dethroned from being the biggest pop star by the rise of Thelma. And with the help of her loyal assistant Megan, she'll do anything to take the pony down and get her title back.
The only way I'll ever be back on top is if we destroy Thelma.
As you could see, there's not a lot to say about these characters. Even when some try to be entertaining in their own way, the best that they could be is just one-dimensional tropes who keep reminding audiences about the movie's message. And the more I think about them and the theming of this movie, the more I realize that there is another missed opportunity to have a commentary about the fakeness of Hollywood, where the image that celebrities and studios present to the public may not represent who they actually are. This would have added an interesting layer to the picture to call out some of the system's own artificial style of producing stars and media, but it doesn't think kids would understand that. So it would rather stick to lecturing about being true to who you are in case the previous 18 times were not clear enough. Sure, that pony can sing, but don't expect anything else that's worthwhile from the characters. I remember a while back when I live streamed my podcast and talked about the trailer. One person in the chat commented that this looks like an Illumination movie if it were made by pre-Spider-Verse Sony Animation. As harsh as that may sound, that's the best way to describe the film. Thelma the Unicorn, the movie, is exactly like Thelma the Unicorn, the character. Since being a good singer wasn't enough to get attention, it had to rely on cheap tricks and fake sparkles instead of genuine talent in order to achieve her popularity. And much like her identity as a unicorn, this is just Hollywood-manufactured trash. It's a tiringly bland animated feature that has an over-reliance of cliches and pointless gimmicks instead of putting creative effort, and thinks that it could get away with it because it's just a kid's film. But even if this is made for a younger target demographic, that doesn't excuse it for its terrible writing with its annoyingly hammered-in message, weak characters, and a lazily overused story, along with some weird designs, forgettable songs, and a lot of missed opportunities that could have made this movie more than what it is. Even when the animation is okay, there is nothing that can make this movie feel worthwhile. I personally find it hard to recommend to check this movie out, because what's the point of watching this on Netflix when the platform already has something like Leo that offers just about the same thing, but better in every way? Sure, that movie's not great either, but I'll happily take Adam Sandler's lizardy wisdom than Thelma repeating the same thing that dozens of other movies have done. By the way, if you enjoyed this review, then give this a like and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more reviews in store and more types of videos that are as fun as a singing pony. The feeling I got from watching this movie is the same as when you learn that unicorns are not real. And because of that unpleasantness, I'm giving this the Animat seal of garbage. I don't think there's enough paint and glitter to help save this movie.
I don't care what the critics say. My fans love Blubber Trouble.